I've met very few people who like the idea of throwing their money away. So that's why a lot of my customers, before they buy a beef from me, like to know what they can expect to take home out of their 1,250 pound beef. While it's a great question for people to ask, it's hard for me to answer that question with precision, and here's why. Beef are a lot like people. What I mean is that they all vary slightly. You'll never find two beef identical, just like there's no two human beings identical. For example, I can almost gain weight by looking at a salad, but there's other people who can eat all the carbohydrates they want and stay still as skinny as a rail. In a similar way, beef vary in how they put on weight. So you could have two beef who are getting exactly 25 pounds of grain per day, and they may put on weight a bit differently. I hate to say it, but because of that, it's impossible for me to, with 100% accuracy, tell you exactly what you'll be taking home in terms of pounds when you order one of our grain-fed beef. That's really encouraging, right? So everybody's got to take a shot in the dark? Well, not really. I can get you a really close idea of what your beef will produce. So the best we can do is to show you an actual example, or two or three, so you get a really good idea of what you can expect out of one of our beef. So in this video, I want to compare my estimation as to what this beef would yield and to what it actually yielded. Because on this particular beef, I had a customer who really wanted to know the exact details of what this beef would yield. So I gave him my best estimate as to what each particular category of cuts should yield. And then when he came and picked it up, we weighed those categories individually, like prime steaks, or other steaks, or roast, chunks, burger, all of these things. And so in this video, you'll get to see the comparison between what I estimated it to be and what it actually yielded. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll get to see a breakdown of the live weight versus hanging weight versus finished product. So in this case, my customer was getting a half of a beef, and it was half of a beef, grain-fed beef, that weighed 1,251 pounds. And so he ordered all the roast we could get him, all the arm roast we could get him, all the chuck roast, the rump roast, the sirloin tip roast, and the tri-tip. And he wanted soup bones. He wanted his brisket cut in 3 equal pieces. He wanted his beef short ribs. And then for his steaks, he wanted his rib eyes, all at 3/4 inch. He wanted his sirloins boneless at 3/4 of an inch, and fillets from that part at 1 inch. And then he wanted his T-bones. He wanted his T-bones 3/4 inch as well. And on the other steak options, where we can choose between round steak or cube steak, he chose to go half round steak and half cube steak. And then he also got his flank steak and skirt steak, which there's only one of those each per side of beef. And then the rest went into burger. He wanted minimal burger and wanted chunks and hunks made out of the rest of it to use like as roasts, or for him to dice up as stew meat. We did an 80-20 fat ratio, did 1 pound packages, which is actually more like 1.4 pound, and he got the liver sliced. So that gives you an idea of what his order looked like. And then let's go ahead and jump right on into loading this up into his vehicle and getting the weights of each particular category of cut.
Oh yeah! Okay, let's see, here's your top sirloin. Just make sure it's okay. Scales clear, top sirloin. T-bone. I want to get this here for the cube steak and then round steak. So let's see what we got there. Roast, round steak, T-bone, with a single pack for you there. T-bone. And remember, I told you we could do some chunks. And so they did some chunks. It'll be basically like a roast, but it's not a specific name. So we said chunks. I'm going to go ahead and put this bag here at 25. I don't know if you can see that. 25.9 pounds. You want to jot that down? So far, 25.9 pounds. Then with more ribeyes. I'm guessing that's going to be the rest of your roast there. So, okay. So that's 16.8 pounds, the rest of your steak. And then we have here, this is your round and cube steaks together, 15.2 pounds. Now, this is where it's going to get a lot of weight here, the roast. Here's our arm roast, chuck roast. Well, that was a skirt steak, flank steak. So here we're at 38.9 pounds of roast.
I know, we're still short. I mean,
Flank.
Skirt steak.
Tri-tip I did with the roasts.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's right. What have you got?
So 6 pounds with a tri-tip, flank, and skirt steak. I'm just gonna put it in here with these. I can never figure out if a tri-tip is a roast or a steak. It all depends on how people do it.
Yeah, it's borderline, I guess.
All right, here's your brisket. We cut it 3 pieces for you. So brisket. That weighed in at 20.8 pounds. We're going to be doing chunks, which is basically like a type of roast, basically. It just didn't quite, yeah.
Do the chunks separate because I didn't factor that in here.
Well, we were basically trying to get your burger to a minimum, is what we did. So that's chunks. Okay, that's it. As far as chunks, it's 27.5 pounds.
Now the chunks, we don't know what they are. So I don't know, should we roast them?
I would use it as a roast. You use it as a roast unless you want to do it as a kind of dice it up into stew meat. So it would do either one.
Either one.
Yep.
That's what I would do. It could be
Oh, it would be like a roast. It would be, yeah. It's not. It's just like a boneless.
It's going to be tender enough.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's not something we do very often, but just trying to minimize your burger there.
No,
Okay, now I see I missed some roast, so here's some more chuck roast. Chuck and rump. That concludes your roast. And it's 21.3 pounds. Next thing is going to be beef ribs. Let's see how many pounds of beef ribs, pork ribs you turned up. 17 pounds of ribs. Beef short. Now we got beef liver. You ordered liver, didn't you?
Yeah, but I didn't factor that.
That's fine. We'll just see what it is anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
Beef liver, 10 pounds. Now the burger, what I'm going to do is just weigh this for...
We have £1.25 in each bag.
It's a little, yeah, about 1.4 pounds per bag. So you're at 63 pounds of burger. Let's go ahead and weigh all your burger. 63 pounds. 76 pounds of burger. And then just real quick, let me check this out. What you got? I don't know. They soup bones you turned up. 19.6 pounds of soup bone. So I can do the math later and get this all put together.
So there we have it. And to get that all totaled up, we'll take a look at this paper here. So of all the roast out of this half of beef, it was 1,251 pounds live weight. We ended up with 3 arm roasts, 1 rump roast, 12 chuck roast, and 2 sirloin tip roasts. The estimated weight was 45 pounds, but it ended up producing 60.2 pounds. So a little bit of head, a little bit more than what I had estimated, which is a good thing. All right, and then on the steaks, we ended up with 16 ribeyes, 10 sirloins, 14 T-bones, and 4 fillets, which was from the other side of the sirloin here. So then I had estimated that around 45.5 pounds and ended up being a little bit shy of that at 42.7 pounds. So slightly under what I had estimated. And then on the cube and round steak, we ended up with 10 packages of cube steak, 8 packages of round steak, and I had estimated 26 pounds of those steaks and ended up with only 15.2, so quite a bit less of those steaks than I had estimated. And then when it came to the brisket, we had estimated that it would be about 18-pound brisket. It ended up weighing 20.8 pounds. And then on the flank, the skirt steak, and the tri-tip, I had estimated 8 pounds. It ended up being 6 pounds that it produced. And then on the short ribs, I had guessed it or estimated it to yield about 16 pounds, and it produced 17.6 pounds. This particular beef did. Then on the liver, estimated 4 pounds, ended up producing 10 pounds. The soup bones, I estimated 6 pounds. It ended up producing 19.6. And then on the hamburger, I'd estimated it would produce about 80 pounds. And in this case, the guy wanted a minimum amount of it, and so we didn't grind as much of that into hamburgers as we would have normally, but instead made him some beef chunks and hunks that he could use as roast. So 27 pounds of roast, not really roast, but chunks and hunks that he could use for roast or stew meat. And then that left him with, instead of 80 pounds of burger, 76 pounds of burger. The estimate was that the soup bones included would have been 249 pounds of yield from this beef, but he took out the soup bones for that, so the final take-home meat without the soup bones would have been 243 pounds on the estimate, but in actual fact, it was 295 pounds of product total. But then if you take out the 19.6 pounds of soup bones, which is not really meat, I guess, so that would leave you with 276 pounds of like edible meat. 276 pounds of edible meat. So let's think about this in terms of percentages for a bit. This beef weighed 1,251 pounds live weight, but the guy only got half of it, so we go 1,251 divided by 2. So his side of beef weighed 625.5 pounds. So after it was harvested and hanging in the cooler, it weighed 375 pounds. Hanging weight. So this thing actually dressed out at 59%. So the hanging weight is 59% of the live weight. And then we get to the finished weight. So the finished weight was 276 pounds. 276 divided by 625.5 equals 44%. So this guy managed to take home 44% of the live weight, and that is unusual. The reason that he did so well is he opted for as many of the cuts as he could get, and a lot of those had bone in, like his beef ribs and his arm roast, and a lot of those things really helped to get it more, because a lot of times on our grain-fed beef you only get about 40%, and that's even pretty good, because if you go with like a grass-fed beef or a leaner beef, a lot of times they'll only yield about 35%, or if you go with a lot of boneless cuts and all burger, for instance, you may only get 30%. So this turned out really well, because this guy got a lot of good cuts, bone-in cuts, and of course the more bone-in cuts you get, the more meat you take home. So anyways, like I said in the beginning, it's impossible to verify what exactly your beef will produce, but this will give you an idea of just a random person that we had to do some guesstimations on. And I decided, hey, let's see how close to my estimation does it really hold out. And that will help you to know what you can expect when you order one of our grain-fed beef. It seems like every video I make, I end up needing to do a disclaimer. So I didn't pick this beef because it was anything special. It was just because the guy wanted an estimate about what it would produce, and so I gave it to him, and then I wanted to see how it compared with actual fact. And now I'm feeling bad for choosing this beef, because frankly, it's not common to get 44% out of your beef. I think for your estimation, plan to get 40%. And if you do a lot of boneless cuts, plan to get even less than that. And if you do a lot of bone-in cuts, sometimes it'll creep up towards 42%. And if you do end up with a beef that gets 44%, consider yourself blessed and realize that you got a lot of the right cuts to get the most bang for your buck. Visit us on our website for more information at showalterscountrymeats.com. Call us at 606-787-7070, or better yet, even text us at 270-551-5224. If you're in the local area here, come on down and check us out. And make sure you bring your appetite. We'll try to keep some samples out. So bring your appetite and we'll be glad to see you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.